Today's talk is titled, Beware the Counterfeit. And the reason why I say that is because, well, first of all, it came to me this morning, beware the counterfeit. I was thinking about my dad being a diamond cutter. And you and I look at a cubic zirconian diamond, which is not a real diamond, it's a man-made diamond. It looks like a diamond to me. But to the trained eye, to the person that knows the difference, they put their little monocle in and they look at it real closely and they go, nope, it's not real. My dad, I remember him looking at one, he says, it's very well cut, right? Because it's supposed to reflect the light, the facets that they cut into a diamond, and the shape of a diamond reflects the light. But it's not the real thing. I guess the reason why I say that is that as I'm on my journey, and we are on our journeys collectively, we are going to encounter many counterfeit people that pretend to reflect the light, pretend to know and be knowledgeable about life and our Creator and the journey. And I guess it boils down to when you see something that is a counterfeit, if you're extra aware, you can see that it's not real. Faux leather. It's hard to tell. I've gotten into certain cars that have this faux leather. And my first thought is, oh, it's got a leather interior. Look at that. And if you just use your senses, a lot of times you'll get into a car, and like I drive an old Jaguar and it's got Conley leather. I know that because I'm a car guy. And you can immediately tell when you sit in the seat and touch the leather that it's real. But at first, when you get into a car and you think, oh, it's got leather interior. But as soon as you put your head in the car and you smell that, you don't smell the leather, because leather puts off a certain smell from the tanning process and the dyeing of it, and it has a certain smell to it, and you can smell the leather. If you're keenly aware, as for my dad was a diamond cutter, he could see the difference between the counterfeit or the fake and the real thing. And as you get closer and as you become more conscious, you can tell the difference between real and fake leather. Or there are people that can tell the difference between a real Rolex watch and a fake. Just because it says Rolex doesn't mean that it is. I remember when I went to New York the first time, I probably bought 10 fake Rolex watches because they were like $10 each. He says, so you were giving them out. And I did. I brought them home and gave them to different friends. I'm like, here's a Rolex. And the first thing I would say is it's fake. But you would look at it and you couldn't tell. Yet if you hand it to a jeweler or a watchmaker, they look at it and laugh because they immediately see the difference. So the question is, after those examples, when we're going through our lives and somebody comes to you and pretends to be a spiritual leader, how can you tell the difference between a counterfeit and the real thing? And sometimes it takes some time. I think all of us have had opportunities to deal with and interact with counterfeit spiritual leaders. As we go through our lives, we will see them come and go. We've seen them play their stories out on television. And I think a lot of us went, yeah, I always thought that guy or that woman was a fake or this, that, or the other. But as I go through my life, I sure would like to see these things sooner than later, right? Because we go down these roads following certain people and we waste a whole lot of life. And such a thing has happened here recently with somebody that we know that was in our group that peeled off and started doing their own thing. And I have a lot of people that have said things to me like, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. This person is the godfather to my son. And this person has really helped me. And this person this and this person that. And I think to myself, yeah, okay. And it doesn't mean to say that these people in your lives can't teach you something. Because believe it or not, they can. And it comes to the point where they actually can teach you the difference between the real thing and a counterfeit. And so sometimes it takes a long time. But I feel like too many people put their faith in other people. And that's a big problem, because then they have somebody to blame when things don't go right. Oh, it was his fault. Look, he took me down the wrong road. She said this and she said that, and I listened to her and I believed in her. What happened to believing in your Father in heaven and the navigator that he sent to help you navigate your way back to him? This whole life of ours is a journey. It's like God puts us in this little maze called life, and we have to wander through the maze and keep going down these dead-end maze roads and turn around and go back and start over again at our beginnings. Sometimes you go along in business and things don't work out, and it just costs you a lot of time and money and life. But if you get angry at it, then you're going to be stuck right there for a long time. If you look at it and say, well, okay, that was my fault. I really screwed up. I didn't listen to my intuitive self. I didn't listen to my Father in heaven speaking in my heart. I was asking my friends instead of God. How many of you and how many of us have friends or are like this ourselves, where we go, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think, Mac? What do you think, Jimmy? What do you think? I have a lot of friends that over my lifetime would say, what do you think, Alan? I'd say, well, I think you should do this and I think you should do that. For a long time, I would give them advice. I think this and I think that. But what I've learned to do, and I think I did it about 10 years ago, I stopped just telling people what I think. And now I look at them and I say, what do you think? Have you talked to your Father in heaven? Have you asked that question of your Father in heaven? I think I was embarrassed for a while to say those things, because my first impression when somebody would say, what do you think, Alan? I would think to myself, well, and then a little answer would come to me. This is what I would do. But what I would do is different than what you should do, because this is my life, and my life and your life are not the same. I have different circumstances. I came from different background. I'm heading to a different place for my finish, if you know what I'm saying. We may end up in the same place if we're both lucky, but you may be in Boston and I may be in Grants Pass, Oregon, and you may be, in another part of the world. So it doesn't mean that my finish line is going to be at the same place as your finish line. So I know that people come searching for the answers. They're searching for the answers because they just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Oh, I don't know what to do. What do I do? What do I do? And so they look around them to the left and to the right. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Jimmy, Sally, mom, dad, brother, sister, uncles, minister, preacher, business leader, mentor. But do we spend enough time asking our Father in heaven, what should I do? Be still and know. We don't really want to know. I guess we really don't want to know, because if we did want to know, we would be quiet and we would sit quietly. But that's not good enough. That's not good enough, because you know why? It doesn't come from a scholarly person. It doesn't come from a minister. It doesn't come from the coach. It doesn't come from the life coach, the business coach, the person that we look up to, the person with the plaque on the wall. It doesn't come from outside. So it's not good enough. Not good enough that it came from within. Why? Have you ever asked yourself why? Why isn't it good enough that your own conscience gives you an answer? It's just not good enough. Because it's usually, you don't want to know the truth. We really don't want to know the truth. We want to hear the feel-good answer. We want to hear the get-rich-quick scheme. We want to get the answer to the quickest fix instead of the fix that will fix it once and for all. So, the counterfeit. 2 weeks ago, I started the Sunday talk saying, I want to talk about lust being the counterfeit love. And then, as I do, it meandered off into other things, being, I think it was called, it's the little things, because it is the little things. And I guess as I've been empowered to do this job that I have now, I'm noticing the little things, because it is the little things. because God will give you these answers that you seek in the littlest way. I came to this building the other day, and there was 2 big ravens. And I didn't know the difference between a raven and a crow until somebody pointed out that the ravens are much bigger than the crows. And they were sitting on top of a telephone pole, and one of them called out to me, "Ah!" And I was like, I looked over and I was like, what? What do you want? And I just sat there and looked at them, and I thought, that's 2 ravens. So there was nothing to it. But I don't know when God is supposed to give me, what does it say? We don't know the time or the place when you're going to receive anything from your Creator. So anytime my attention is pulled over like that, I think, yes. Like if you're with your parent and your parent calls your name, do you just keep walking away? Do you just keep doing what you're doing? Or do you say yes? Or you turn your attention to your parent? Is not your Creator your ultimate parent, your Father in heaven? So I look to hear with my ears anything that is going to give me a sign that I may supposed to just be still and know for a moment, if you know what I'm saying. Whatever it is, you can be cooking some eggs and standing there waiting for them to, not cook too much because you don't want to make the yolk hard. So you're standing there watching it, and all of a sudden, something comes over you and it says just one word, counterfeit. And you go, okay. And then you look back down at your eggs and the yolks are hard. But it's okay. I'll eat the hard yolks. So this morning I woke up, and what came upon me was beware the counterfeit. And I thought, okay, all right. And then I asked the question, not to my wife, not to my friends, not to anybody. I asked the question to my Father in heaven, who's the counterfeit? Is it me? Because nobody wants to turn that question in on themselves. Is there a chance that we could be counterfeit versions of what we are supposed to be? Are we the rough-cut diamond that doesn't have enough confidence in ourselves to believe in ourselves? Is life the wheel that is the diamond wheel that cuts the facets? Life itself cutting the facets, and each experience is the diamond being turned to cut the facet a little differently, to catch the light a little differently so it shines into others. I think that's what this journey is all about. This journey is the cutting of the facets to reflect the light. And if we get angry at it, if we get angry at the experiences that we have, that most of them are not good. Imagine for a moment being the diamond. You are the diamond. Imagine yourself as this rough-cut rock. And the Creator takes you and He rubs you against this grinding wheel. It doesn't seem that fun, does it, to you as the diamond, to be scraped against this diamond wheel? If you don't know what a diamond cutting wheel looks like, it looks like a record player. And they put the diamond in a little arm that holds it perfectly still, and then they rub it down against basically a piece of sandpaper. I'm giving you a very simplified version of it. I'm sure it's a diamond cutting wheel of some sort, but I've seen my father's diamond cutting wheel, pictures of him, and it looks just like a record player, like he's playing a record, but he's actually cutting the facets in the diamond. We are the diamond. And those experiences where we are rubbed against life until we are flat and smooth is the Creator's purpose. So if you get angry at it, then what do you reflect? What do you reflect when you're angry at the experiences of life? Angry and bitter. I guess the diamond cutter looks at that diamond and says, there's some flaws. And then what does he do? He puts it back into the wheel and he grinds it some more. You wonder why there's big diamonds and little diamonds and different shaped diamonds. That's all of us. We're all still diamonds in the rough, but we're going through life learning about this process, the refinement process. And the diamond cutter, the creator, the ultimate diamond cutter, who's cutting us as it takes time to cut a diamond, can tell the difference between a counterfeit, and he pretty much just throws them out, I think. So be careful of the counterfeit, diamonds in your life. You'll come across other people that seem they shine so bright and they speak so many good holy words, and they have such a learned side of them that you just admire that. I remember I have a brother that, my younger brother Mark, he was always so brilliant. He was always reading, and he was always so able to call things up. And I remember going, I wish I was like that. And so for a long time, and then I think my dad one time, he says, why aren't you more like your brother Mark? I used to want to be like my brother. I wanted to be a good surfer like my brother David. I wanted to be a good builder like my brother Michael. I wanted to be a free spirit like my sister Diane. She was a very free spirit. And I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be a good speaker like my dad. But I wanted the words to carry the message, not just fancy words. And so I knew the difference between me being a counterfeit and me being the real thing. And I didn't ever want to be a counterfeit version of my dad. Probably that's why I do this talk the way I do with you folks, and the way I've done it since I started a few years ago. Completely different than what my dad does. Completely different, because I can't do what he did yet. I'm not the diamond he was yet. But the Creator will make us all into a diamond if we allow the process and don't be angry at the process of life. Because good times and bad times will come and go, but we have to endure, patient endurance, and wait. We can be impatient. Aren't there people? We had a person the other day, and I'll come to you guys that have been raising your hands in a minute. We had a person the other day that said, can you please discontinue my $20 monthly donation? And I read on, and basically what they said was, I've been listening to your dad for years, and he's helped me with certain things, but he just hasn't given me what I want. And I realize what we all want is to be what we want to be now. Like the girl on the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I want what I want, and I want it now. And so now that my father is passed on, a few people have dropped off because they want what they want, and they want it now. And now that the guy that they thought they could get it from is gone, they're afraid to take that journey by themselves. They want somebody else to make them good. Nobody's going to be able to make you good. Nobody's going to be able to make you anything except your Creator. And if you are looking to another person to make you what you want to be, then you don't want to be what your Father in heaven wants you to be. What you're wanting is something different than what He's wanting. You know how they say, how do you make God laugh? You tell Him what your plans are. A lot of us, we're not patient enough. We're impatient. We don't want to do what must be done to become what we are supposed to be. We lack courage. We lack faith. I was talking to somebody the other day about faith. And it says, if a man, something to the effect of, if a man or woman had the faith of a mustard seed, they could change the world, right? Something to this effect. They could move a mountain. Think about that. Think about that. We think we have a lot of faith. Most of us would say, if I said, raise your hands, do you think you have a lot of faith? Everybody raise their hand. Yep, I have a lot of faith. But if we had the faith of a mustard seed, we could move a mountain. I'm finding out what true faith is. It's like a melting away. Have you ever seen those kind of movies where people melt like wax? And that's the real us. We are a counterfeit version of what we're supposed to be. And when God helps you to melt away that counterfeit version, It melts away like a wax figure in those wax museums. They're not real. They look real. They look like the real thing. But you put a little bit of heat on them, what happens? It melts. The same happens with us. You put a little bit of the heat, the pressure of life on us, and we fall apart. We fall apart. We cry like we're adults, but we cry like babies when things don't go our way. It's funny because it comes back. I keep coming back to that Jon Voight thing. Jon Voight, the actor, when his life wasn't going good, he pounded on the floor. He was on his hands and knees on the floor. Why, God, does it have to be so difficult? And then he heard God say, because it's supposed to be. This test that we're on called life is the test that we have to endure. And if we had the faith and the courage, we would remember that and remember to turn our face to the face of God in those hard times. But instead, what do? We turn to our friends, we turn to alcohol, we turn to food. When times start getting tough, we turn to all the things that give us comfort to continue being the wax figure that we are. And it's very sad that humanity has turned into a world of wax figures. And even though this crazy president, this crazy counterfeit version of a man is in the White House, well, I'm going to say half of our country put him there, right? Maybe. But we feel like it was, stolen. I feel like it was stolen. Yeah, and everybody in here agrees with that. But even still, if you go out into the world, you have to be careful who you open your mouth to, don't you? Because you will find that one person that actually likes him. And you have to recognize that person is a counterfeit. So the question is, if that person is a counterfeit, who is behind that counterfeit person? And or what is behind that? We become slowly but surely turned into counterfeits if we're not careful. But I hope that we, the collective group of the folks that have listened to my father for years and years and decades, are starting to wake up, because now that my dad is gone, that is the best thing that could have ever happened to you and us, because we must redirect our focus. Redirect the focus from the man, Roy Masters, any man or woman in this world, to your Creator and to your Savior. Because God sent His Son to save us, His only begotten Son, to save us from ourselves. From ourselves. But we, unfortunately, have gone so far down this road of always looking to somebody else for approval, looking to somebody else for the answers, that we forget where He is. He dwells within us. And so my message today is beware the counterfeit, because we are the counterfeit. It starts right here with us. It literally starts with us.
Yeah, you were commenting on, there's an actor in Jumanji. He's a really masculine-looking guy, strong and everything. And one time he was being interviewed on the radio or on television, and it just blew my mind. He says, I cried when Biden became president. I go, Jesus, this guy's something else. And in the movies, he is the guy, the guy you go to. But I just go, how could anybody? But some people are easily fooled, But,
he cried with joy?
Yeah, cried with joy that Biden won. I just go, damn.
You were talking about how do you notice the counterfeit. I noticed that we grow up and we're trained to believe in people, believe in authority, like we're so used to listening to the outer voice. Like I used to listen to talk radio all the time, and I was addicted to hearing the common sense, but then I realized, well, I need to connect to that so I don't have to hear it from someone else, right? So people, there's an authority figure that there's just a different energy with the real thing, like with your father. When you're in the room there's a gentleness there, but there's a 100% assurity of where he's coming from. But with the counterfeit, it's some of the same words, but it's not the same energy, and you can sense it. And I've been guilty of it myself. They don't want to really necessarily see it because they may have to speak up to it and have some courage. And that's tough for people, you know.
So it's interesting to think that you can take something like the Bible, and which is written for each one of our ability to find our way in this world, and you hand it to a person that is told to you that they are the authority. Even though you have the same Bible that person has, you hand yourself over to that person because they are the authority. And when you do that, you've actually stopped all growth within yourself, because then you're growing a different appendage. You're growing an intellect. You're growing knowledge instead of understanding. You're growing a memory bank instead of understanding. So my understanding now of why my father closed his, what I call church building down way back in the day, was he says, you guys are all too focused on me. He said, go out there and go to your churches and do what you're going to do. And if you like what I say, you can listen to me on the radio. He did that at a certain point, and I remember thinking, why are you doing that, Dad? And he told me, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah? Well, people go to church because they want to learn about, God and Jesus and the journey. And I think, yeah, well, why would you close your church down? Well, I'm on the radio 5 days a week, and then they can listen to me. They can, get tapes and recordings. And because I know my dad knew that people used him as a crutch, and they weren't going inward. The be still and know part of the equation. What did God say? Be still and know that I am God. And so we tend to distract ourselves with all of these counterfeit gods. I have several friends that, the Mormon friends, and I have a couple of Hindu friends, and if they think about all the different religions that have their gurus and things, and I always feel like, how sad, because they're continuing that journey of putting their faith in man or in humanity instead of the Father in heaven. And in my lifetime, getting advice from man has only gotten me in trouble. And as I've learned to listen to my Father in my heart and be directed by what he tells me, and sometimes when I say that, you think, oh, well, what did he say? It isn't that way at all. It's just, it's like, I don't know how to even put words on it. My dad calls it the wordless word, right? You guys have heard him say that. It's not words. It's more like a knowing and a come this way or go that way. Or he'll sometimes give me a beware the counterfeit. And sometimes a word like the word counterfeit will hang on me for a month or more. It'll hang on me, and I keep saying, what does it mean? Why? What? When? How? Where? And I don't know until I do know. And then once I know, I go, oh, I get it. Because it's an otherworldly thing. It's not this world. It's not of this world. It's when you know, you know. Like you guys know my dad, and you know that he knew something. And that was so intriguing and so interesting to all of us, right? All of you and me too. I knew my dad knew something. And that was, to me, the part that made me continue to follow my own dad in this direction, that he was going in life.
But you can't just give it lip service. It has to be a change in your life. A change in your life that makes you want to be different. Not only be different, but be more perfect. And you can't just say, like after you're baptized and say, okay, now I'm saved, and that's the end of it. No, it's living beyond that part. And that's only the beginning of the change. Every day is another beginning of that change. And when you make the mistakes, the death of the sin is the separation from God. So the more you sin, the more you tempt God to separate from you. The more you resist the temptation and get through it correctly, the closer you become to God, and then you have more of this intuition.
So God doesn't separate from you, you separate from him. Let's just make sure we clarify that. God is the corner post. We separate from him. People always say, well, why does God, somebody asked it, I think it was Dave. He said that a atheist asked him, if God is God, why does he allow so much suffering in children and people that haven't done anything wrong, so on and so forth? And I know that in this world, there is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering, and we ask that question to ourselves all the time. Why does a little baby get killed in a car crash? Or why does a little baby get cancer? Why, Lord, why? And there's some things that we won't know the answer to, obviously, until we go to the other side, if we're that lucky, if we're that fortunate is a better word. All these things, as my father said to me a million times in my life, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord. My wife and I lost a baby on my birthday. Why? I don't know. But I do know that God was speaking to me at that time. Wake up, Alan. Wake up. What did I do? I didn't wake up. I had to go back on the grinding wheel to become the diamond again that was being forced against the grinding pad, because it wasn't that woke me up. I actually ran harder into life to forget about the pain of having a baby that didn't live. So I think, why? And then I remember seeing the little spirit of my daughter that was born a few years later playing with my son. I walked into the house one day and I saw my little son, who was probably 2 or 3 at the time, playing with a little girl. And so I walked in the house when I got home from work to give my wife a kiss, and I saw the 2 little babies playing in there with some toys, and I go, who's the little baby playing with Jason? And she says, what do you mean? And I said, there's a little baby. And I took a step back and I looked, and I saw this little girl, and she turned and looked at me, and then she went whoosh and disappeared. She just kind of went up. Up she went. And maybe that was just for me, but I remember thinking, what was that? And my wife kind of was like, what happened? And I said, there was a little baby girl. And that little baby girl was then born to us later on. Now, I don't know whether it was that girl that was born to us or the spirit of the little baby girl that passed. I don't know. I'll know on the other side, I think, I hope, I pray. But we all have had experiences, dreams, knowings, experiences. Some people say they've seen aliens, they've seen things in the sky. Some people have seen demons. If demons exist, couldn't angels exist? If you know what I'm saying. I don't even like putting the word angels on, because I think to myself, oh, well, I'm not that guy that believes in angels and things like that. But I do believe that God has the power to send a human being into our lives to change the direction of our lives. And then you go looking for that human being and you can't find them, they're gone. You go, where'd that person go? I don't know. Did you ever meet that guy? No, I never met that guy. You ever see that guy? You look up his name. I've had people in my life where I just can't find them. They're gone. It's like they didn't even ever exist. And I think to myself, well, we've heard of those stories of people that are in car crashes and, the car's upside down and somebody came and turned the car over and then just walked away and was gone. So I don't know, angel? I don't know. But I do believe that in my life, I've had a number of experiences where I saw the spirit world. I told you guys once upon a time I was in one of my dad's lectures at the church we had here in town, and he was talking about Jesus, and I said, where are you, Jesus? Where are you? Where are you? In other words, what physical location? Where is heaven? Where is Jesus? Where are you? And the air opened up. In the middle, I was sitting at the end of the pew, and right next to me, the air just opened up, and Jesus was sitting right there, and he says, I'm right here waiting for you. And then the air just closed, and it was like, what just happen? Now, was it just my imagination? I mean, possibly so. Who knows? But it was pretty real to me at the moment. And so, I don't know, we've had these experiences in our lives. Many of us have had, probably more so, with demons and things that visit you in your sleep or your partial sleep state. All these things that add up to who you are make you live fearful or faithful. Fearful because, oh my God, no God could love me for what I've done in my life. Or faithful because you know that you're forgiven already, and you walk ahead going, all right, I don't want to go back. I'm going to use the windshield instead of the rearview mirror. The rearview mirror is small, and I'm supposed to look through the windshield because it's big. That's where I'm going. And the rearview mirror is small so I can see where I've been. But I want to go ahead and not judge myself or hate myself for being an idiot, because all of us are idiots at one point in our life.
There's a movie that you were talking about. It's called Peaceful Warrior. And this elderly guy works at a gas station helping this student. And he gets him into a state of consciousness. The guy's a gymnast, the student. And he helps him quite a bit. And then he goes back later in the movie, and the guy's, he can't find it. The gas station's abandoned. And it was like the guy never existed.
Speaking of movies, we saw a movie the other night. If you guys want to see what true faith and courage look like in a man that is alive today, Free Burma Rangers is the name of the movie. Free Burma Rangers. I don't want to give it away, but I'll give you a tiny bit of it. This man was born into a family of missionaries, so he lived his life around the world with his parents as he grew up. So he was no stranger to living in other countries. And he felt that in his life that he was, meant to do something more. So when he became of the age to go into the Army, he joined the Army, and he became an Army Ranger. Army Rangers are special forces. He was in the Army for 10 years as an Army Ranger, and then he got out because he didn't find what he was looking for there, and he became kind of an adventurer, and he was climbing mountains, and he's from Washington State, I think, and climbing mountains and doing things, and he met this woman and invited her to go climb and summit some big Mount Rainier, I think it was. And his father called him, who was a missionary, and he was in some other part of the world, and he said, son, he said, I got a call from a missionary doctor who is in Burma, and he needs help. He says he could help more people if he could get closer to the front lines. He says, so they need you there. And he decided that's what he needed to do. So he turned to his girlfriend at that time and said, why don't you marry me and go on this mission with me to help free and save people that are in Burma? And she thought to herself, this is crazy, but she did it. And the amazing thing about this movie is not only did he take his wife, brand new wife to be, to Burma, where there was a horrible war going on, and this was 25 years ago, he also raised 3 children while he was doing what he did, which was the most courageous thing, risking his life and his family's life almost daily. And I don't want to give any more away than that, but this movie it's life-changing because you get to see a man on his journey. And it's not a movie, it's a documentary, so everything you see is real. And you get to see this man risk his life a number of times, and you see how he does it, and he talks about his journey in life with his Father in heaven, and how he always turned to his Father in heaven and said, Lord, I don't know what to do, what should I do? And it's a most amazing outcome, so I don't want to spoil it beyond that. Free Burma Rangers. We watched it on Amazon Prime.
There's another movie very similar to it based on a true story. A minister in Africa trying to save the village. It's called Machine Gun Preacher.
Yeah.
And they interviewed him after the last part of the movie. And the guy was real. He was basically didn't want to see his people killed. So he picked up an AK and kept his village from being slaughtered.
So the great part about all this is you can see the difference between a counterfeit and the real thing. And as we're on our journey through life, as we're going on this journey through life together, since these folks here in this building are my neighbors, my friends, my brothers and sisters, we're supposed to see the counterfeit, and we're supposed to tell our friends maybe about the counterfeit. It's about being able to see the counterfeit for yourself as you do your walk in your day, in your life, as you walk through life, as you deal with people that come to you and want to spend time with you and do things with you. Not that you should look at them and say, what do you want from me? I'm not talking about that. It's just living your life consciously. And then you will get these little knowings, the little wordless words that say whatever they say to you. For me, counterfeit, that's a word that came to me lately. But I find that I'm going through my life now and I'm seeing these counterfeits sooner. And let me tell you how thankful I am. I am so thankful because I feel like I have wasted a lot of time in my life on being counterfeit and running with other counterfeits. But as you wake up, you start to see the counterfeit version of yourself, and you don't want to be that way. You don't have to be hard on yourself, just don't want to be that way. Just be aware of it. And you start to see the counterfeit version of others. And then guess what? If you are that diamond, then the light will come through you and reflect into others. And that's what happens if you are God's diamond. You reflect His light into others, and they then want to be like you, and they may say to you, what is it is different about you? You have to simply guide them inward. Say, just ask yourself that question. Look inside. Here, try this meditation. See if you don't see something. Because everybody comes, what should I do? I want to remodel my house. What do you think I should do? Well, I'm not an expert. Why don't you get a designer? But when it comes to certain things in life, you will find that people want you to hold their hand through life. Hold my hand. Take me with you. Have you ever had that experience where somebody wants you to hold their hand and take them with you? I try and tell them, no, you can, if you want, follow for a while, but you have to find your own path too.
Yeah, I lived at this one place, these apartments, and this one guy was a drug dealer. And he was a real rat. And I know he was doing drugs and everything, but you couldn't trust him with your nickel, you know. So one day he tells me, you look like you got your head together. I says, why don't you help me, stay in line? And I go, no, I can't do that for you. You have to do it yourself. And you know what? He was a real scoundrel anyway. He would have somebody to blame. See, it would never be on him. It would be, well, he's the one that told me to do that. So it's not on him, it's on me. I go, no thanks. You got to go your own way, and that's all.
What's nice is that we know that my dad's written a number of books, and I would suggest give somebody a book. You really want to know? I'm going to give you a book. You really want to know? I'm going to give you this meditation exercise. I'm going to pull it up on your computer. Here it is. Give it a try. Because otherwise you will create a dependent. I remember we had a chicken that was born with no eyes. And this is a weird story. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what's going to happen with this chicken with no eyes? I remember thinking, I was probably only 10 or 11 years old, or maybe 8, 9, 10, I don't know. I was very young. I remember thinking that my dad said something that I thought was so cruel. He says, you have to kill it. And I said, what do you mean I have to kill it? He says, you want to let it suffer? It'll starve to death. You want to starve it? He said, you have to kill it. And I was like, what are you talking about? No, I can't kill it. He says, that chicken with no eyes, it will become dependent on you, and you will belong to that chicken. You won't be able to do anything because that chicken will need you to eat every day. He says, is that what you want? He said, you want to spend the rest of your life taking care of a chicken? No. He says, you have to kill it. And we're like, what in the world? Because little boys, right? Me and my brother Michael. What in the world is, how could, unfair. We talked about this earlier with babies, with humans. The lesson was here though. We thought, Dad is so cruel. And then of course, he let us live with it for a few days. And it was like this chicken, it was completely unable to take care of itself. It didn't know where it was. The water could be right next to it, and you'd have to turn it and put its little beak in the water so it could drink. And we were a slave to this little chicken. And it seemed so insane until after a while we realized And some life's lessons are cruel, aren't they? They are cruel. So when an atheist says to you, why does God do this? All things work together for good for those that love the Lord. And if the atheist doesn't even believe in the Lord, if they don't even believe in a creator, then how could you possibly, it would be like explaining to that chicken what the sun looks like, or a blind man what the sun looks like. They can feel it. They can believe in it, okay? But these people are blind. Now, they can go through their lives and wake up one day and say, you know what? I've been asleep my whole life. There is a God. Okay, so that's why I don't worry. I don't judge them. I don't get angry at them. I just say, well, maybe someday you'll figure it out. Again, I don't want to be the atheist's enabler or teacher or slave to them trying to convince the atheist there is a God. They're going to go through life and they'll figure it out sooner or later. Most atheists are not atheists their whole lives because one day they pray out, they hope to God there's a God, if you know what I'm saying, right? So when somebody does that for you, I noticed you, Dave, have posted something about that and you got all these different types of answers. You can think of the blind chicken. Not that you have to kill the atheist, like we did have to kill the chicken, but you just have to let them live their lives because they're not blind. They can see, they can eat. So he says, who killed the chicken? So back to the chicken story. No, we lived with this little blind chicken for about, I think it was probably several days or a week maybe. And then my brother Michael and I, we realized, oh my gosh, this chicken now owns us. We can't do anything. We were having to feed it because we didn't want to see it die. But instead, we had to put it out of its misery. So here's what happened. This is hilarious. My brother Michael says, I can't bear to watch it. Now, this is an 8 or 9-year-old and a 10 or 11-year-old. I don't know, whatever age we were, he's 2 years older than me. So we concocted a way to not have to witness the killing of the chicken, okay? And yet all of us eat chicken, so we are the cause of many chickens dying, right? But we put it in a plastic bag and tied a rock around the plastic bag and threw it into the channel because we lived on the water. And it disappeared under the water, and we stood there on the dock, my brother and I, and we were like, oh my gosh, that was so hard. And all of a sudden, yeah, we were kids. We didn't know how to tie a rock. So boop, there it is. It popped up, and there it was in the plastic bag. Now it's going to smother. Oh no. So we had to jump in and go and get the thing into the water because we were fully clothed. Jump in, go get the thing, bring it over. Oh my gosh, there's a poor little thing. So what a lesson these two little boys had to learn, right? So then we decided, all right, there's no good way to do this, but let's just make it swift. So we took it out into the empty field, and we dug a little hole, little burial site for it, and we put it on the ground, and we picked up a big rock, and I can't remember if Michael picked up the rock or I did, and just smashed it, and then threw it in the ground and buried it over and stood there and cried. And it was the hardest thing you ever have to do, to take something out of its misery, right?
I just have to say that in every one of us, there's a respect for life, even if it's in a chicken.
She's got a tear in her eye over a baby chicken. Yeah, there's something about life. Hold on.
There's just something about life. Even as a child, I remember seeing living things, and it's like you don't just want to kill it. That's all.
I had a strange experience. This is many years ago, and I was in my 30s or whatever. But I looked in my garden area, and there's a swallow, and it was kind of hanging on a weed. It was just kind of like, and I got down there, got pretty close to it, and it had a eye was being eaten out by, I guess they were like mites or something like that. It was being eaten alive, and so I don't remember if I followed it or I ended up on another piece of the property, and this thing lands right in front of me, with its back towards me. And there's other swallows on this tree branch. And I didn't do what I should have done. I should have stomped it. But I think it came to me to put it out of its misery. So whatever happened to it, it eventually died, but slow death.
My son came home the other day for the holidays, and he had to come home. He was in Idaho working on a house. He's 22. And he said on the way home, he was driving along at night, way out in the back country, nobody out there. And he came along, and there was a car with its lights on and its flashers on. So he slowed down, and what he could see was that 3 huge elk had got plowed through by a big semi, and 2 of them were dead, and there was one that's all 4 of its legs were broken. What do? Huge elk the size of a horse got hit by a semi, and the semi was gone. It just kept on going. Probably had a big old cattle guard on the front of it. He said the thing was trying to get up, but all of its legs were just busted and broken, and it was just, like what it looks like to be on ice, trying to get up, and nothing would work, and it couldn't. And he realized that he had to put it out of its misery. And so he had a gun in his car, and he loaded it up, and he went out, and he said he went and stood next to the elk, and a big elk. And he knew it couldn't get up because he was watching it try and get up, and it couldn't get up. And he said he looked it right in the eye, and it looked right at him, and then it just put its head down like, it's my time. And he said he had to shoot it and put it out of its misery. And I said, what was that like? He said, I just had to put it out of its misery. And sometimes you have to take your emotional heart and put it aside for what is right. He said right about then the police drove up, and he asked if he could take it because he had a pickup truck, and because elk meat is good. And they said no, that they actually take these animals that get hit to the Indian reservation, and that's what they do. They give them to the Indian reservation for food. But in life, we have a lot of opportunities to experience very sad things. The death of a friend, the death of a parent, animals that die. And it's an interesting time of life, is it not? A very interesting, introspective time of life.
Can I talk about sin for a minute? Sure. There's a story about the unhewn stone that gets polished for the house that's put together without hands. And these stones, they're slowly polished until they get all 6 sides polished. And then, something can happen to them, like they get blemished or something. Maybe somebody drops it, breaks a corner off. Okay, so what happens is that's sin, so you got to repolish the rock again. So what happens is, over a period of life, these stones, sometimes they have to get polished time and time and time again. Well, what happens is the stone gets smaller and smaller each time this happens. Well, sometimes the stone gets so small that it can't be used, and it's thrown away. What we don't realize is when we sin, there's consequences to the actions of our sin. We can be forgiven for the sin, but the consequences that the story of David and Bathsheba, David wants Bathsheba. He sees her bathing, and he has this lust for her, and he impregnates her, and he takes her husband's life. He has him killed in battle. God forgives him for this sin, but the consequences of it, David, the prophet, tells him that this rich man steals this poor man's sheep. And David is angry about the story, and he said, I should kill him. Well, he thinks about it a little bit, and then he thinks, no, the law has a remedy for this. And the remedy is that the rich man should give 4 times what he took from the man. So for each sheep, he should give him 4 sheep. So I think it's Nathaniel is the prophet that tells David, you are the rich man that stole this sheep. So he doesn't see it at the time. Anyway, David has 4 sons, and he loses all of his sons. And I think that's the price that he pays for his sin with Bathsheba. The point is, we can't see far enough down the road to know what's going to happen. I guess there's consequences to your action. I don't know.
I said to somebody the other day, I said, sin has a ripple effect that has its own action, like you're talking about. And when we sin and we have a family, it's like when you're single and you sin, it has a ripple effect, and it usually is not as great, I don't think, in some ways, as when you have a family and you sin, because the ripple effect then ripples into all the family members. And as I said that, I realized that when you're single and you sin, it ripples into the world, and you really don't know how it's going to hurt. Like, we have a friend that had an important job, like a preacher. And when a preacher sins, when a preacher does things that are wrong, or a minister, or whatever you want to call this person that is supposed to be teaching God's word, the ripple effect is great. And you know who wants to heap coals on the head of the sinner at that point? The devil. Because the devil is waiting for those that are given these important jobs to do these wrong things, because he, the sinner, has helped lead God's people astray. And so that ripple effect is going to be heavy on that sinner's head, the heaping of coals, I should say. But I mean, all of us, every one of us is responsible for the whole world, because look what one man did. Jesus Christ affected the whole world because he took seriously, and he was an authentic lover of his Father in heaven and obedient. And because of that one man, the whole world is a different place. So if we could all take the responsibility of, what if God said to me, this is your job? Could I do it? Would I do it? That's why I've decided in my life that if I want to be a responsible person with the job that God has given me, I must change my whole life. Because up to this point, it has all been a wax figure. And so I don't care that it all goes away. Not that I care. Isn't that funny? Think about that. Imagine if all of a sudden one day you woke up and you realized that God had a job for you out of all the billions of people, and you look at your life and go, well, no, I don't know. I kind of like my life, more than the life that God wants for you.
It's called realizing your commitment. And you have to realize it every day. And like it says, pick up your cross every day. It's not, I hope it gets easier as you go along. But
it does. Because once you make that commitment, once you really recognize that you are a chosen. You are a chosen. We watched that TV show called The Chosen. We are all chosen, but we choose differently, don't we? We choose the selfish life, the wax figure life. We choose that. And so we turn away from God. We want to sound good. We want to put on the wax version of God. We want to be able to quote verse and chapter. I know a lot of people that live an absolutely sinful life, but can verse and chapter you to death. Wax figure, counterfeit. Know it when you see it. So I'll end with this. Know it when you see it. Don't doubt it. You need to walk through your life more conscious. God has sent us many ways to be able to become more conscious, but the best and the simplest one to me for this earthly plane that we live on is this simple meditation exercise that my Father has brought to the world in his own fun way. Be still and know. It's so simple. It's just so simple that it almost seems silly. It's like, really? Yep, that's all you got to do.